Good morning, everyone. It is Jennifer from Tarle Speech, continuing with our celebration here of 20 years in business. So, thank you to all of you for being here all the time so that I can continue to bring you these free lessons. This year, you will have a free lesson every day in celebration of my 20 years. I am posting the lessons that I created many years ago, which are follow along, shadowing, repeat after me practice as I produce and publish my masterclass series here on YouTube. If you're listening as a podcast, you can head on over to YouTube to complete all of those lessons. Before we jump in today, we're going to be talking about syllable and word stress. I just wanted to give you a quick preview of the week. I just posted a lesson today on spirits, so you can check that out. And then tomorrow we have your 2 for Tuesday homophone lesson. On Wednesday, we have a new vowel masterclass. And then the rest of the week, I will be posting follow along practice for that. I have a few extra lessons this week, some practice tips, and some tips from teens. So I'll be here a lot. Please check all of those out. If you're afraid you're missing something, I am now on Substack, and you can head on over there and you can see all of those lessons that you may have missed and then watch those on YouTube. Okay, so without further ado, let's talk about syllable and word stress. So I'm going to give you 3 tips for today on how to improve your syllable stress and your word stress. So when we are talking about stress, this is a very confusing topic for many of my students because stress in English is timed differently than in many other languages. So English is a stress timed language, and that means that different syllables and different words are going to have more importance and more weight, and they're going to be stressed more. When we stress something more, it is louder, it is higher in pitch, and the vowel is longer. Okay, so it's louder, higher, longer. Don't forget, you need to have the opposite, which is unstressed. And that is going to be softer in volume. It is going to be lower in pitch, and it is going to be quicker. Okay, so we have those opposites: louder, longer, higher, lower, softer, shorter. All right. So 3 tips for today. Number 1, we're going to talk about one big main pattern that you can apply to syllables and 2-syllable words and in compound words when they are nouns. And that is going to be stressing syllable number 1. And then we have the opposite, stress syllable number 2 or word number 2 when we have verbs and phrasal verbs. We're going to practice that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about thinking about your tempo and changing the rhythm of your words when you add prefixes or suffixes, but when the stress on that root word stays the same. Okay, so rule number 1, let's talk about stress in nouns, adjectives, and compound nouns. Okay, we're talking about 2-syllable words here. Okay, and 2 words put together that make a noun. So we have this pattern. We're going to stress and then unstress. So we're going to say record, produce, happy, burger, cookie. So I'm stressing syllable number 1 and I'm unstressing syllable number 2. Again, record, produce, happy, burger, cookie. Same pattern for compound nouns. Football, bus stop, North Sea, West Side, haircut. All right. So think about humming if this is difficult for you. And we're going to really stress the first one. So it's louder, longer, higher, lower, softer, quicker. Okay. Doing this is really going to make you clearer to many speakers and is going to make you sound a lot more natural and native in your pronunciation. So for many of you out there who are at a really high level, your pronunciation is actually very good in terms of sounds. So many of my students say, but help me. I want to sound just a lot more natural. This is a great way to do that, is to really focus on the syllable stress and the word stress. Okay, so let's do a little practice. I'm going to put the words back up. I'm going to say the words, and then I want you to repeat after me. Okay, so we have record, produce, happy, burger, cookie. Okay, give those a try. Football, bus stop, North Sea, West Side, haircut. Okay, awesome. How did you do? I'm sure you all did great out there. All right, now we're moving on to tip number 2. And this is going to be the opposite of what we just talked about. So there we stress syllable number 1 and word number 1. Now we're going to stress syllable number 2 and word number 2. Okay, so it's going to be Okay, so it's going to have that stress and that kind of lift up on the end of the word. So we have the unstressed and then the stress. We're going to use this in verbs, prepositions, phrasal verbs, and phrasal adjectives. I do like to always remind people that this is the rule and it's a very consistent rule, but there is always an exception to every rule in English. I have yet to find something that proves that incorrect. So just remember that this is the rule, I would say 99% of the time, but there's probably an exception somewhere. So just keep that in mind. You may hear something different, either regionally or in conversational speech. But the rule for the nouns versus the verbs when they're 2 syllables, that is pretty set in stone. So keep that in mind. That one is pretty set. Okay. So let's listen to this pattern. So we have record, produce, between, accept. And then we have payout, checkout, turn off, perk up, put in. And then we have bright red, light blue, old fashioned, record breaking, quick witted. All right. So the 2 words that might have stuck out to you here are record and record, produce and produce. These words are heteronyms. I have a whole set of lessons on this. And so you can check all of those out. I have a playlist on that. I'll actually write myself a note and I will add that to the description after class. And we have many words like this that get very confusing because if you pronounce it with the incorrect stress, then you are saying a different meaning to the word. Okay, so I'm going to give you those heteronyms again. So if it's a noun, the produce, and then if it's a verb, produce, to produce, the produce to produce. So again, syllable number 1 for the nouns, syllable number 2 for the verbs. We can think about this pattern for a compound word too. So we can have the checkout, the checkout. I'm going to the checkout, but I'm going there to check out. So slight change in the stress changes the part of speech there. So the checkout to checkout, the checkout to checkout. So I have the produce. Where will you produce that? So you can see just slight difference, and that is really going to change the rhythm, and it also changes that part of speech and the rhythm. Okay, so let's just practice a few of those. I'm going to say a few. So let's do record and produce. Okay, and then let's go to the checkout counter to check out. Check out. You can also check out the description under the video to get more information. And I'm wearing a light brown color on my jacket, light brown. So again, we're stressing that second word, that second syllable, and that is really helping your rhythm. Okay, so again, just to recap, nouns, we're stressing that beginning, and verbs, we're more stressing the ending. Okay. Moving on to our last tip. Let's think about tempo. Okay, so most of the time when we add a prefix or a suffix to a word, so the prefix is what we're going to add at the beginning, like un, and then the suffix is what we add at the end, like the ed or an ing or an ly. Most of the time when we add those to words, the root word stress doesn't change. It just stays the same. Okay. So like for instance, we have the word happy. We're always going to stress that hap syllable, right? These will sound a little bit different though when you add the prefix or the suffix. That is because the tempo is going to change. The rhythm is going to change because we are going to think about having this amount of time to say a word. Okay. So we have this amount of time. If we have 2 syllables, we have this amount of time to say 2 syllables. If we add a third syllable by adding a prefix, we still only have this much time. So what do? It's like a math problem. We have to make all of those syllables a little bit shorter. Okay. Same thing if we add a suffix and now we have 4 syllables, say, to a word, we still only have this much time. So we're going to have to make some syllables shorter. All right. I'm not going to get into this today, but this is why we have the schwa sound so much in English, because as words get longer, we use that schwa sound a lot more so we can fit everything into that amount of time that we have to say the word. Okay. So again, we're going to think about changing the tempo. Many of my students will keep the same amount of time for each syllable, and they might say happy, unhappy, unhappily. And that sounds almost like a person is kind of like clapping and keeping the same rhythm. In English, though, what we're going to do is we're going to try to fit it into this amount of time. So we're going to make some shorter syllables. So instead of saying happy, we're going to say unhappy. So you can hear that un and that e are shorter. Now we're going to add the ly and say unhappily. Happy, unhappy, unhappily. It sounds like I'm speaking a little bit quicker, and I have a lot of students who say that it gets to be too fast when someone is speaking. But it's not necessarily that we're speaking at this faster rate. We are just using shorter syllables in that word to speed it up a little bit so we can fit it in that same amount of time. We do this as well when we are saying maybe a place name. So, my example that I love is there's a city and it is called Kent, and that is in Ohio. So, when we put that together and it becomes sort of one word as a place, Kent, Ohio, it becomes so much like faster, the perception of it, right? So, it's Kent, Ohio, Kent, Ohio. And kind of hear that rhythm and that tempo changing. Okay. All right. So, let's look at some words. I'm just going to say them and I just want you to listen. Happy, unhappy, happily, unhappily. Agree, agreeing, disagree, disagreeing. Heat, preheat, heated, preheated. Okay, now repeat after me. Happy, unhappy, happily, unhappily. Agree, agreeing, disagree, disagreeing. Heat, preheat, heated, preheated. Okay, how did you do, everyone? So don't worry about being perfect. Just think about trying a little more to be more consistent and to try to make more differences in your stress and in your rhythm. That is going to make such a huge difference. So let's try a few of these again. We're going to kind of recap here, and then I'm going to take some questions. So, 3 big tips for today. Number 1, we tend to stress the beginning syllable or the beginning word of nouns. Rule 2, tip 2, we tend to stress the end syllable 2 of verbs and phrasal verbs. And some other things, but I'm trying to give you the big picture here. And then number 3, tempo changes with stress. That rhythm is going to change. And we see this a lot, of course, with those compound nouns and phrasal verbs and those 2-syllable words. We hear that tempo change. But also, we hear this tempo change when we make words longer, when they have more syllables in them. Then we need to shrink all of the beats so that they fit into the set amount of time that we have to say the word. Okay, so let's try an example here. So let's do the produce to produce, the record to record. Okay, and then let's try happy, unhappily. Okay, everybody. Awesome. So that's all that I have for today. I did get some feedback that people were looking for things that were a little bit shorter, a little bit quicker, maybe things that are a little bit easier to implement right away. I've taken that into consideration. My first class back to the lives this summer, it was a long one. So sorry about that. Getting better as I go along here. I was kind of out of practice with my lives. I have posted a lot of my old lives as rebroadcasts on my podcast platforms, and those are always available on YouTube. If you don't know where to find those, you just go to my homepage at Tarle Speech on YouTube. And across the top, you have like I have my playlists on my homepage, but then you can kind of click across to videos. You can search by most popular and latest. There are some playlists on there, and you can also see my live lessons there. There's all of those on there, so you can check out those rebroadcasts. Okay, so let's take some questions before we wrap up here today. Okay, hello. Okay, it's very nice to see you too. Let's see here. Okay. So, yes. So, house has one syllable, house. Now, this is like an interesting word because we have a heteronym here. We could say house, same spelling, different pronunciation. House is the thing that we live in. And then to house with the Z sound, that means that's like the verb, the action that we're going to put people in a home and give them a place to live. Okay, local time. It is almost 10 in the morning here. Okay, the pronunciation of Ronald Reagan. So we're going to say Ronald Reagan. So we're going to have stress on the beginning of each of these. And we are going to say Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan. Okay. All right, everyone. Anything else before I sign off? While I'm waiting for final questions, just a few plugs. You can get all of my follow along pronunciation guides as digital downloads. I have ebooks, which are basically a PDF with clickable audio links. Those are available on Teachers Pay Teachers, and they are also available on Google Play. These are available on iTunes as well, but also on iTunes, I do have some guides that have videos in them. So please just check the descriptions of those and you can find those. Also, posting a new video every day this year to celebrate 20 years in business. Thanks to all of you. Seriously, I am so beyond grateful. I can't believe I get to keep doing this and helping you and offering all of these free lessons on YouTube. If you are interested in one-on-one training, I do offer that. You can check out my website. I do offer group classes if you have several people you'd like to get together. And if you want me to come to your location in the US or in the world, please reach out. I'm scheduling classes for 2026, and I would love to come to you and teach a class. I've taught in Tokyo, Japan, and in Nanjing, China in the past. And these classes were so much fun. It's so great to meet all of you in person. And all of my classes are bespoke. It's a fancy word that means just made specifically to meet your or your group's needs. So reach out to me for that. Okay, I don't see any other questions. So just one final thank you, thank you, thank you. You are all so amazing. I'll be back next week with another class celebrating my 20th year in business. So thanks again, everyone, for being here. Have an amazing day.